Okay, that music is fabulous. Thank you to our producers for adding music to our countdown. That is a really, really wonderful way to get started. Hello and good afternoon, and welcome to Please Welcome. This is a monthly opportunity to learn from some pretty incredible people in our community who are leading and innovating. So, as we prepare to dive into today's conversation, I want to take just a moment to reflect on the power of leadership, the power of authenticity and personal empowerment. We're going to speak with Ebony Wyatt today. Ebony's journey embodies these principles, showcasing how one individual can make a profound impact both in the corporate world and beyond. With 20 years of experience in consumer product sales, Ebony has not only climbed the ranks, but she has also remained steadfast in her commitment to championing diversity, inclusion, and effective leadership. It's one of the main reasons that we wanted to bring her in today and have a conversation. Her dedication to fostering critical conversations and building, yes, badass brands, we're going to talk about that today, serves as a beacon of inspiration for all. So as we jump into this, let's open our minds. Open our minds to the lessons that she has to share with us today. That's what this is all about, to learn and share. Let's explore the nuances of leadership, the importance of authenticity, and the transformative power of embracing our true selves. We hear so many people talk about creating corporate cultures that allow us to truly bring our true selves to work. We're going to talk about that today. So get ready to be inspired, challenged, and empowered as we journey into the world of Ebony Wyatt.
Thank you, Judy.
How exciting to have you with us today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Oh my gosh. So let me just fill in a couple of important details about your background, and then I'm just going to cue you up with a couple of fun questions today, and we're just going to let you roll. But to give people a little bit more background, you have 20 years of consumer product sales experience, and you're currently the Vice President of North America Regional Grocery at General Mills, correct?
Yes, you got it. I know it's a mouthful, but you got it.
It is, and I want to get all of those words in because it's an amazing role that you have. And but you, in addition to, so like that's not enough, right? In addition to, you have created Ebony Wyatt Speaks, in which you facilitate badass workshops. I'm really excited to hear about that. You are a diversity and inclusion driver. You are a change champion. You are a bridge builder. Girl, when do you have time to do all of this? Today, you and I get to share all of that with our audience.
It is a lot. Well, I think I need a kitty heart going everywhere with me because that was probably the best intro I've ever had. So thank you for that, kitty.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
You deserve all of it. So we want to share you with our audience today. That's all of kind of the technical of your background. Kick us off. Tell us high level. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I will. Well, my name is Ebony Wyatt. I like to say my hashtag is mom, wife, boss. So I'm a mom of three. I have three children, aged 6, 9, and 12. I'm wife to William. And then, as you mentioned, I'm a VP of sales at General Mills, and I also own my own company. I'm a friend. I'm a community builder. I'm a champion of those who have traditionally been underrepresented. I'm a busybody, as you could probably tell. I'm originally from Arkansas. I currently live in the Twin Cities area. It's a little bit about me.
So, how did you land in Minnesota? You all from Arkansas to the frigid Midwest. And how long have you been here?
How did we get here? So I I am from Arkansas, born and raised. I went to college at the University of Arkansas, so a whole 45 minutes away from home. And then I interned with General Mills the summer in between my junior and senior year in college. And before I had the internship, I didn't even know jobs like this existed. So it was pretty cool, really eye-opening to a whole new industry. And then I started with General Mills, who is headquartered in Minnesota. So I knew eventually at some point I would make my way to Minnesota.
Okay.
But it took me a few moves before I did that. I started my career with General Mills in Atlanta. And then I moved to Arkansas again for work. And then I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. And then I left there and went to Minnesota. But this is my third time living in Minnesota. The first time I said, I'm absolutely not coming back. It was too cold. It was hard to make friends. And the third time I'm here, I love it. I have found my community. I
Oh,
definitely would say kids definitely help in building that community and finding kind of
mm-hmm.
your people.
Yeah.
But General Mills has been a part of that journey, and so grateful to have a company too who is has a really broad impact across the Twin Cities, which helps to also get integrated. So here I am now living in the
Yeah.
tundra, learning how to work a snowblower. I can shovel. I can do all the things. I'm not taking on winter sports. That is really beyond
That's
who I am.
okay.
I'm a Southerner at heart, but
Mm-hmm.
I love living in the Twin Cities, and I'm grateful that I gave it a second chance, and not only that, a third chance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I really have found this to be the place for me and my family.
Well, we're glad that you gave it another shot as well. Glad that you found your people. It seems like you do hear about a lot of people who relocate here for jobs, and there are a lot of people who come and never leave again. So even though Minnesota can get a bad rap for its weather, there's so many wonderful things
Yes.
about living here as well. The summers are glorious.
The 3 months of summer are glorious, and there's a lot of cool people, a lot of industry here, so I get to meet
Mm-hmm.
some amazing folks across
Yeah.
industries, and that's one of the things I love too. Not only just the industry, but there's a lot of nonprofits doing good work in the community, uh,
Yes.
so it's really a special place, and I think
Yeah.
until you live here, it's really hard to articulate to somebody else who all they can see is the snow.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get past that, it's a really, really cool place to live. And honestly, my kids, like, they don't know a Christmas without snow, so when we don't
Yeah.
have snow, that's all they know.
Yeah.
Um, so it's special, and it
It
doesn't
is.
bother me. It's
Yeah.
different here because when it snows, we keep moving, right? We're not
Mm-hmm.
like in the South, everything shuts down.
That's
Um,
right.
but we keep
Yeah.
moving and grooving here. So grateful to be in Minnesota.
There's so much of your career that we want to talk about today, and I'm intrigued by the fact that General Mills has been your entire career. You
Yes.
interned and
Yep.
you moved right in, and you've been climbing the corporate ladder there. So, as you are approaching 21 years at General Mills, how do you that's unusual in today's day. A lot of people make more moves than that. How do you stay engaged?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes, I have been at General Mills my entire career. It's crazy to look back and think it feels like I was just an intern the other day. My knees don't feel like that though. But anyway, I digress. I truly do. Some people love their job. I'm one of those people. I love my job. I love General Mills. I love the people who work there. I work with a ton of smart people. Um, but how I've stayed engaged over this 20, almost 21 years. Number one, I'm always being challenged. So every time I think I have it figured out, it's time to move to a new assignment and learn and take on a new
Mm-hmm.
challenge. I really enjoy that. Secondly, I've been able to lead within the walls and within the community through General Mills, and so I'm so grateful for that. So I've led our Black Champions Network, that's our Black Employee Affinity Group, as the president. I've been able to do differential work through that organization and present to the CEO and just just really build with our executive team. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. Um, and there's just so much. I mean, we're doing good work in the community. And so whether it's
Mm-hmm.
engaging for me, I started volunteering with Girls in Action way back in the day. Um, uh, and Dr. Verna is doing some fabulous work with high school girls in the North Minneapolis area. Um, so it allows me not only to work and be challenged from a professional standpoint, but to lead not only within the walls of General Mills, but in the community, and be very supported in doing that. If
Mm-hmm.
I see an issue, I feel very empowered to go act against that. Um, and so I think that also comes with the territory. When you stay somewhere a long time, you just feel more empowered
Mm-hmm.
to do and address things. I feel very comfortable having a conversation with everybody from the CEO on down. But that culture is what makes us really special.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, 21 years, I'm still here. I love my job. It was so funny when we got into the pandemic, my husband and I kind of worked across the hall from each other. And he was like, "You really like what you do every day." He's like, "You get pep talks all day. You're talking all day." He's like, "I'm exhausted just listening." But it's because I like it. I want to be
Yeah.
here. And I'm really grateful to work for a
Mm-hmm.
place that supports me, develops me, and just
Mm-hmm.
allows me to just be all of me
Yeah.
and to lead authentically.
One of the things that I was really excited to be able to talk with you about today is on the topic of diversity and inclusion. And we hear a lot of leaders talk about this. And one of the questions that I always have is how do you make sure that inside your corporation or organization that there's not just talk and awareness about it, but that it is deeply integrated into the culture and the operation of the team. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of I think there would be a lot of people who would say, I hear you talk about it, but how does it really show up?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I'll start kind of high level and work my way down. So, one, I work for a place where diversity and inclusion has been a part of our corporate culture for decades.
Hmm.
And so, I think that frame is really important because I operate in an environment that cultivates this type of culture, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
it is easier in a way because I know that this is like celebrating belonging is one of our corporate values, right? So I know that
Okay.
that is really important. So let's start there. Number two, my job as a leader is to cultivate the environment where people can thrive, where
Mm-hmm.
people can bring their best self to work, where people's ideas are heard, are valued, and where I give an opportunity for people to grow and develop as well. And so I have to make sure, whether I'm with my larger team or with my small direct team, that I'm creating the culture of inclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
Does everybody have a voice? I have someone on my team who is a courageous truth teller, and she doesn't always say what is easy. She says the hard things. And so I make sure that I celebrate her and I appreciate her in front of everybody because that is a really hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But we need those people on our teams that will keep us accountable, that will push us and say, I'm not sure if this idea is quite right.
Yeah.
But we have to create the space for that. And so I
Mm-hmm.
don't always get it right. But I try to make sure I'm creating space for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And my team is partially, I would say, 50% of my direct team, so my leadership team, is remote. And so making sure that I'm creating spaces for the faces on the screen as well as the ones that are in the room. And when folks aren't speaking up, giving them the opportunity. Hey, we haven't heard from you. I'd love to hear what's on your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is hard work. It does take a little bit longer in a meeting, for example, to make sure we're creating that. But it's so important because I feel like we're getting the best ideas.
Yeah.
When everybody's voice is being heard, when everybody feels like they can bring their best self to work, we get the best ideas. And so my job as a leader is to cultivate that. And I say the third part of that is I have to role model what authenticity and inclusivity looks like. And so I'm always being thoughtful around how I'm showing up, whether it's on a big stage, a small stage, whether it's with the customer or not. And so that's where I'm doing some of my work right now is how do I bring my retail customers on the journey with me? How do I ask questions to understand where they are culturally on this journey?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is not lost on me when I walk into a meeting and there are women on the other side of the table that may not be in a leadership position that I still play a role as a role model to them as well. and I can see it in their faces. I can see it in their eyes. So not only am I a leader within the walls of my organization, but I can also lead across my industry. I can also
Yes.
lead with my retailer partners. And I want to make sure that everybody feels like their voices are heard, right?
Yes.
Even my customers,
Mm-hmm.
even the person who may not feel like they have the positional authority. How do they bring that idea to the table? And are we creating a space for them to do that?
Mm-hmm. And what a wonderful impression that creates for the General Mills brand. I mean, you become an ambassador just
Yes.
in that viewpoint and doing that. So it's incredibly important.
Thank you, Kitty.
So I want to make sure that we have Ebony, we could sit here and talk for a few hours. So we did have to distill some questions down for time. So I feel like we're just gonna hit some topics that we could go quite long on. So we're gonna bounce around a little bit, but I want to make sure that we hit some of these. I am always really enjoying conversations with women like yourself who have been in the corporate world, and also a very male dominated industry, right? Okay, so
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about your journey, your career path, and I always really love to hear about the challenging situations. So some people might look at you, they might go and look at your LinkedIn profile, or if they looked at your resume, they would see this, wow, amazing, wow, how great, Ebony, she must be a superstar, and in fact, you are. But there were certainly challenges along the way, and it's good to tell people about the challenges that are faced. Can you share some of those with us?
Yeah, I have a couple of examples I'd like to share on this piece. This one just popped up for me, and I think this is a really important one. About 10 years ago in my career, I was in a customer meeting. I was the lead, so I was sharing the information, and I noticed that the customer, the highest ranking person on that side, would not make eye contact with me.
Mm,
He would not look at me. And so I
okay.
just kind of tucked it away as data. 'Cause
Yep.
again, I got a meeting to run. I've got information that I need to share in with this group. And after we finished, I went and I talked to my at the time my vice president, and I said, "Hey, I want to call something out for you. I noticed that such and such would not look at me during the meeting. Did you notice that?" And he's like, "Actually, I didn't notice that." And I was like, "It didn't feel good."
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know what we can do about it, but I didn't feel acknowledged in that moment. And he said, "Let me noodle on this, and I want to think through how I can support you and like how I can have a conversation with him." But his whole thing was, they tend to operate on the hierarchy, right? And so even though I was presenting the information, I wasn't the highest ranking person on our side. It was just the weirdest thing. Um, but what my boss did do is he went after, had a conversation with him, advocated for me. And of
Hmm.
course, the guy, pretended like he wasn't sure, but he would make note not to do it again. So I think about that in terms of one, I mean, there will be times, even when you have the credibility to be there,
Hmm.
when your organizations have the partnership, that there will be somebody in the room that won't acknowledge you. And
Yes.
so in that moment, I had to keep going. Like I was like, data point, great, tuck
Hmm.
it away, deal with it later. But like in this moment, I'm still here to do a job, right? No matter
Yes.
how I'm feeling devalued by this person.
Hmm.
And so it's interesting now to walk into the room as the leader of the team, as a Black woman, as a young Black woman, um, and see how my customers react to me. And I am so grateful that I have some amazing customers, and they are all over the country, and they are all over the map in terms of size and location. But they have created a welcoming space for me, right? And they're smart in the way that they operate. They know that I am the leader. So I'm so grateful that the evolution has occurred. And every once in a while, I'll walk into somebody that's not quite sure I'm the boss, and that's okay. They understand that by the time we leave.
Yep.
But
Mm.
I remember that moment of when that man wouldn't look at me and how
Mm-hmm.
that felt. And so again, like I'm working overtime on the back end to make sure my folks don't feel like that.
Yes.
And so I'm very comfortable to have a difficult conversation, whether it be internally, if I feel like somebody is being mistreated,
Mm-hmm.
externally. Um, but I remember that story and I know, microaggressions can show up in different ways,
Yes.
right? They can show up in your body language, they can show up in the way you question the idea I put on the table. Um, it can show up in a number of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all dealt with them, right? And
Yes.
so not only was, I had to deal with it, but I had to make sure that I did something about it.
Yes.
So
And great that you did. Great that you did say something. And hopefully this was a moment for him to say, "Oh, you know what? That bias that I have came out in my body language and in my, you know,
eye contact. Yeah.
lack of eye contact." And hopefully that was a wake-up call for
Yeah.
that person
Yeah. That is
in
my
his
hope.
life.
That
Hmm.
is my hope.
So what what would you say were the most challenging aspects of your career path? Climbing the corporate ladder, I guess that's typically what we would call it. Where were the most significant challenges
Yeah.
there?
Most of my challenges in the corporate space were internal. They were internal challenges. So
Okay.
lacking confidence was a big one early career. And
Imposter
really
syndrome?
feeling like I didn't belong. So kind of like
Oh.
I want to put the words because I think sometimes people don't really, everybody has a different view of imposter syndrome, but mine
Mhm.
was I lacked confidence and I didn't feel like I belonged in the space. And so when I say didn't feel like I belonged in the space, I had come from a single parent household. I was the first person in my family to graduate college. My grandmother raised me. So not even, so having kind of a couple of generations removed, and just feeling like, man, I am so different than everybody else, right? Because everybody is bringing their best self to work, and everybody is, you think is perfect, and you're the outlier, right?
Mhm.
And so that was my difficulty in like just not feeling like I deserved to be there. And and once I started reframing that narrative, I'm like, heck yeah, I deserve to be here. I've overcome these challenges. I've done it with very little um, support,
Mhm.
with no, I didn't have a roadmap. I had to figure these things out on my own in a lot of cases, or through the help of mentors and my community. But like, if I can do that, if I made it through all that and I'm here, like I deserve to be here and watch me work. Right. So,
Yes.
so when my mentality shifted around being a victim to being a victor,
Mhm.
like everything changed for me. And for me, it was about getting really clear about my story because I was telling my story all wrong. I was telling
Ah,
my story from a place of pain and shame versus power and purpose. Like I'm standing in my purpose and my power today, and I know that. But for whatever reason, I had this woe is me kind of mentality early career. Um, and so part of the work that I'm doing at General Mills and as I'm building my business is helping people to understand that you belong. Like you've got to
yes.
believe that because that narrative playing over and over in your head will never allow you to be your best self.
It's a
Um,
self-fulfilling
yes,
prophecy, right? Yeah.
yes. Like the stories we tell ourselves are so important,
Mhm.
and so critical in the way we show up, the way we interact, the way we either bring light or darkness into a space. And so once I figured out that I belong there and my story was powerful versus something to be ashamed of, like I was unstoppable. Um,
Yes.
and so, it took me about year 10 to get there. And I'm like, if I can get folks there much earlier in their
Mhm.
career, like, watch out.
Right. Okay, so is this what has fueled the Building Your Badass Brand workshop?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's a lot of it. I think
yeah.
I'm a natural coach. I'm a natural motivator, and I wanted to give the lessons that I had learned in my corporate journey, the
Hmm.
development opportunities I've had at General Mills. I wanted to pass those forward, and I wanted to spread that message to others. And what I found, especially, you know, for groups, I'd say marginalized groups, if we can just build that confidence and exude that confidence and be really clear about what we're good at and be unapologetic about that, that's where I was trying to go. So I originally,
Hmm.
when I built my business, and when I wrote Building Your Badass Brand, the workshop, it was originally a talk for a college group.
Okay.
And I'd heard so much about personal branding, but no one had ever given me the steps on how do I think about it? You know,
Hmm.
how do I process this? And then how do I bring that to life? And so I knew that I wanted to start a business. Every time I would tell my story, I would draw people closer in. So I knew it was something around storytelling, speaking. I wasn't quite sure which lane. And one of my friends said, you should teach workshops because every time you teach something at work, it really works well. Like you should do that for yourself. And so I was like, I was like, I already actually have some content that I could repurpose for a corporate audience versus a college audience. And that's how the Building Your Brand workshop was created. Um, and just trying to help folks to think through what am I good at? How do
Hmm.
I confidently articulate that? And then how do I continue to innovate my brand?
Hmm.
And how do I stay relevant for today and for tomorrow? Um, and really, it's a little bit of storytelling, communication, confidence building. Um, and I'm so grateful because I feel like that is part of my purpose. And just grateful to be able to do that and work this corporate thing, lead teams, support
Hmm.
people, support organizations as they support their employees. It's been it's been just a beautiful journey, and I'm so grateful for that.
People talk a lot about, as you think about what you do, just what you do for a living, what you do in general, do more of what you love doing. It seems like that's you're crafting your life to be that. You're really developing out these things that you're really good at, and there are things that you really enjoy, and that just radiates from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
just I'm grateful to be able to execute that. A lot of people
Hmm.
have ideas in their mind that they've yet to activate on or yet to move
Yes.
on. Um, and I'm grateful for the pandemic. It slowed me down enough to say there is more work that I want to do,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I need to move this forward. Um,
The
so
time
sometimes
is now.
the time is now. We've
Yeah.
waited our whole lives for this, and I know there's just so much more that I'm
Hmm.
supposed to be doing, and so
Hmm.
that's part of what I'm doing is trying to impact as many folks as I can.
I think it's great that you have the ability to be an entrepreneur inside the corporate engine that is General Mills. General Mills is a global company. It is corporate through and through, but you are a born entrepreneur and you're able to infuse that into your leadership style at
Yeah,
General Mills, and you're able to have Ebony Wyatt Speaks on the side doing all of these other things.
yeah,
That's not normal.
yeah. It's not. I think,
It's wonderful.
and the other thing is my passion is very visible. Like I can't
Hmm.
go support people behind the scenes, and like I have to share it. Like I am out there in front of audiences. It is a little bit different than having an Airbnb, for example,
Hmm.
right? But for me, it's how can I return the value back to my organization? And as I think about the value that it is driven for me. I am way more confident. And so, guess what? That breeds a better negotiator. That breeds a woman leader that others can look up to and feel like empowered. I feel much more comfortable networking and building thoughtful connections. Um, I think I'm a better storyteller as a result of seeing what stories work for lots of different types of audiences, right? So, some of the downside of working at one place is you know the audience very well, right? There's really not a lot of surprises that can come. And so when you work across whether it be nonprofits, corporations, and you're dealing with different types of people, you're not sure what's going to come from the audience. You're not sure what kind of questions. You're not sure what their development looks like in those
Mm-hmm.
organizations. And so it's allowed me to figure out how to best connect with that audience. I think it's allowed me to be a better connector to my customers in my full-time job. And then the last piece is it's allowed me to be a better coach. I feel confident that I've seen a lot of different things and I can give people the coaching that they need and feel powerful after receiving that coaching, right?
Yes.
Not
Mm-hmm.
just coaching folks, but they want to be inspired. They want to be energized. They want to say, thank you for that feedback. Now I can do something with it. So I always try to make sure that I'm delivering value back to my organization. And if I'm not doing that, then it is time to do something different, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to not only be able to work at this amazing company, but to do this thing that I have so much passion for
Mm-hmm.
and to bring those worlds together at
Yeah.
different points.
So, how great for the people who are on your teams to have such a great leader and mentor. Who were your mentors in your career?
Ooh, I've had a lot. But I want to take a step all the way back. My first mentor was my grandmother. And
Oh,
I think about the role model she was for me.
mm-hmm.
And it took me years to kind of go back and again, telling that story differently, right? My grandmother was low income, but she was a community builder. She didn't get a chance to go to college, but she was a masterful problem solver. Uh, she was a master networker. It wasn't anybody in my community of influence that she wasn't connected to because she was very comfortable having a conversation with anybody. So I have to start there to say, man, when I look back at the role model I had in front of me on some of these soft life skills, problem solving, resilience, communication, networking with for impact, community building, that was my grandmother. So I have to start there. She was my first mentor. And as I think about kind of navigating my way through General Mills, I've had so many. I remember one of my first bosses was a man named Sherman Oglesby, and he is now retired. And he would just inspire me and speak life into me. And I was probably 2 years into my career, and just the things I needed to hear,
Mm.
he always knew the right words. Fast forward, there's folks like who one of our VPs that has recently retired. His name is Steve Maley, and he was just the way he would give me the feedback and then also build me up at the same time. He just had this powerful way of like he could tell you the bad stuff and the good stuff, but you would leave there feeling energized and inspired and empowered. And there's so many that I can name. I mean, so many women that paved the way for me,
Mm-hmm.
especially at General Mills, and then women that don't even know me. So, for
Mm.
example, Carla Harris is a speaker. She's a Wall Street boss, and she was one of the first Black women speakers that I saw, and I was like, I want to be like her. She's crushing her corporate job, but she's also speaking, and she's an author. Like she is killing it. I think of women that lead across some of our customers. Latrice Watkins at Walmart. I think about Roz Brewer, who was the former CEO of Walgreens. There's so many women that are out there just crushing it. And sometimes I don't even have to know them, but just seeing their
Mm-hmm.
journey has inspired me and has motivated me to continue to climb and to help others because they are so visible and I can see it. And thank goodness for social media and some of those other outlets where they don't have to be at your company anymore.
That's right.
You know, they don't even have to be in your industry. There's
Mm-hmm.
so uh, many opportunities to connect virtually and to see their work and to watch a talk that they've done. So I'm just grateful for that. And my hope is I'm doing that for others,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. You're a very humble person, Ebony, and I can tell that because you just listed so many people that you look up to and that have influenced you. And, that's, you're basically saying, I mean, you are wonderful and you are accomplished, but you know that there's so much to learn from other people who are out there. And that's so important. I agree. I'm so grateful for the social media that we have today that gives us this access to people.
Yes,
As I am always having to remind myself, Kitty, you've spent too much time on social media this week, so make sure that my feed is filled with good quality people.
exactly. Exact
Yeah.
good quality folk. And just imagine like when we were little girls, if we had that same visibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
because I grew up in a small town where it was very much industrial. You know, my mentors were educators. So I think about one of my first kind of mentors outside of the home, Yvonne Keaton Martin, who was my principal in elementary school. And she's 90-ish years old and still like we keep in connection because I
Oh, that's
never forget
great.
those seeds she planted in me, even in
Yeah.
first grade. Like, I think that
Mm-hmm.
was the first time I'd ever heard, you're going to go to college. And I'm like, I don't even know what college is yet, but I'm going to roll with it because Miss Keaton said so. Right.
Yeah. Yes.
So just even some of those little things, I reflect back and
Yeah.
even as a little girl, the impressions people can make,
Mm-hmm.
it matters. So how we
Yeah.
speak to our children and our children's friends and the people in our community, it all matters.
Yes. It all matters. I'm curious about, so not necessarily mentors, but allies, and particularly male allies. How how did they influence your path?
Yeah.
How important were they? I think this is also something that needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
So the relationship between men and women in the workplace, they don't does you didn't necessarily have to have male mentors. You listed some there,
Yeah.
but there's a place for allies
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Man, I've had so many male allies. And honestly, like I was just reading through some kind of women in the workplace stuff. I mean, 1 in 16 um, folks in the C-suite are women of color, right? 1 in 16. So,
Okay.
you do the math, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think allies and sponsors, like we have to have men to ally for us because a lot of times they're in positions of authority. And while our companies are making great progress, like there's still a gap at the highest levels of organizations in terms of male versus female representation. So as I think about some of those male allies along the way, I mean, again, those mentors were also some of those folks. I think about some of the folks that I have, like there's a guy on my team right now, and he does the little things to make me feel seen, safe, and heard.
Mm,
Right? We travel together. He is not going to let me be. If I want to leave early and it's a 2 block walk to the hotel, he's going to go with me. It's
okay.
little things. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes we take for granted the little things. When we go to meetings together, I think sometimes there's a tendency to think that he's the boss and he makes it very clear. He's like, hey, Ebony's the decision maker. But it's some of the nuanced things that he does like that, the thoughtful things, the intentional things. And I just wish all of our allies would do that. I
Mm-hmm.
remember this is a few years ago, and we had just moved to virtual. So we were all kind of figuring it out, but I kept being interrupted uh, by one of my male counterparts. And I remember one other one stepping in and saying, "Hey, Ebony was trying to say something. Can we just let her talk?" And I was like, "Thank you for that." But again, sometimes we think of allyship as something that is so hard or this big feat. It's
Mm-hmm.
little things. It's the way we treat people every day. It's those interactions. It's those ways we create safety. It's
Yeah.
those ways we sometimes we spotlight individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm so grateful. There's so many male allies in my life that I can't name them all, but there's some really special ones, like the guy that I work with every day, and just the thoughtfulness around how he treats me,
Yeah.
right? And how he makes sure others treat me. Like he creates
Mm-hmm.
that space. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. That it's really important. And I don't know what the statistic is out there, but you hear people talk about this a lot, that if you have that person at work,
Mhm.
whether you call it a best friend or it can just be an ally, somebody that's just super, super
Yes.
respectful of you as a colleague, what that does to your job satisfaction, it's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
So important. What advice would you give? So, my original question was, what advice would you give to women in pursuing their dream? But that doesn't have to just be a women focused question. We should all, men and women alike, we should all be pursuing our dreams in today's day and
Yes.
age. What advice do you have for people?
100%. So, as I think about advice that I would give folks pursuing their dreams, I'd start with number one, you are enough. Like you belong here. You got the job for a reason, or you got the idea for a reason. And so, one, just be confident in that. So, the fastest way you can find your confidence, the better, right? You're going to unleash the best in you.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is build your community. Build your community of supporters, of mentors that know the space, that can create shortcuts for you, that can help you understand the unwritten rules or the alliances you might need. Um, find you some friends in your safe spaces. So community would be the second piece. And number three is just go. Um, had I not just went 4 years ago, I wouldn't have building your badass brand, building your badass network, my storytelling workshop. So you just got to go. And it doesn't have to be perfection, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was looking back through some files. I was like, woo, these PowerPoints were ugly when I started. Like they were not as beautiful as they are today. My social media it wasn't great. It was not very pretty, but I just
Mm-hmm.
did it, right? And so now as I'm learning, I'm iterating and it looks better. It
Yeah.
shows up differently. So you just gotta go, right? And you
Well,
gotta believe that you can.
and I'm sorry, and that probably didn't matter because you were so you were so authentic in it.
Yeah.
This just came up in a conversation I was having with someone yesterday on the topic of AI. So you look, there's and we haven't even talked about AI, and I don't think we'll get to it today, but it'd be fun to have a conversation with you on that. As we look at how AI is being used, there's sort of a polish and a perfection that comes from
Mhm.
it that
Mhm.
really probably won't land that well because people want personal human interactions.
100%.
So even though you look back on all of those early iterations of the brand and the work that you were doing, it was authentic to you, and people it spoke to people.
Yes. Yes. People are
Yeah.
drawn to authenticity.
Yes.
And I wish I would have learned that earlier too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
was so busy trying to be what I thought I needed to be in some of these
Yeah.
spaces. And it was way too much energy. I was using a bunch of energy on the wrong stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't who I was, and I wasn't building the connectivity that I am today. Um, so I'm just, again, you've got to figure out a way to also be your authentic self so you can
Mm-hmm.
spend all your energy on your ideas, getting to where you're trying to go, mapping it out. versus like spending so much energy internally.
Yeah. How can people connect with you? If people want to get into the building your badass brand workshop, where can people find you?
Yeah, so there's a few places. One, you can follow me on Instagram at Ebony, Ebony, speaks the number 2 and the letter U. Ebony speaks to you. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I post a lot of content there as well. And then I have a website, Ebony Wyatt, WYATT.com.
Fabulous. So good. I've got one really big question to ask you. I didn't let you know that this one was coming, so sorry if I take you off guard. But will General Mills bring back banana Cheerios? I'm asking for a friend.
Hey, I'm not sure, but we have several flavors of Cheerios that I'm sure you will love. So feel free to try the strawberry banana Cheerios. Feel free
Okay.
to try fruity Cheerios. Feel free to try. I'm trying to think of all my kids love the berry. So we have that in our pantry right now. So
Okay.
Kitty, I will share that feedback internally.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll say there's a very important consumer that's looking for her banana Cheerios. And I'll share that back with the marketing team.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. What a testament to purpose-driven leadership. I am so proud to know you, Ebony. I'm glad that we've gotten to know each other through this and am excited to stay in contact with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Kitty.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
It's going to be fun to watch you continue to soar. And to our audience, as always, thank you so much for joining us as well. Until next time, remember to embrace your authenticity, lead with purpose, and whenever and wherever, lift up these stories, lift up people like Ebony that are doing such great work in this space, so that our whole collective journey toward a more inclusive and empowered future can truly flourish. That's one of the reasons that we do Please Welcome. We want to lift these stories up. We hope that you will as well. All right. Please continue to stay in touch with Heroic. We'll be back next month. I don't think that we have our date set yet. We'll be back next month and every month with more amazing Please Welcome conversations. Thanks, Ebony.